Hello. How's everybody doing? My name is John Linden. I'm CEO of Mythical Games. Thank you for having me out. It's exciting to share some of the stuff we're working on. So yeah, I titled the talk, Is the Metaverse Really Going to Happen? I thought I'd put a little provocative title out there. I mean, to be super honest, metaverse is probably one of my least favorite words in the industry, mostly because there's just so many weird definitions of what's happening. So wanted to share a little bit of our perspective from the gaming industry, kind of where we see this going, some of the tech that's actually being developed out there, and the steps we think that are happening right now. So very quick introduction on my background. I've been in the game industry for a long time. I used to be a studio at Activision Blizzard. I had my own mobile company as well called Seismic Games. We sold to Niantic. But I've been very fortunate in my career. I've had a very, very fun time. I got to work on some really, really great IPs. So things like Call of Duty, Skylanders, Marvel, Blade Runner, Star Wars, things like that. So we've been able to see a lot in kind of what we consider, I guess, the Web 2 world now. And it's starting to bring that experiences into Web 3. So first thing we've seen right off was we've seen two massive changes over the game industry over probably about the last 20 years. So first is what we kind of call democratizing game access. We've gone from nearly 100 million gamers to now we're sitting roughly about 3.5 billion gamers that play games every single month. And that number is expected to increase to nearly 4 billion by 2027. So that's kind of been here to stay. It's been a huge, huge effect on the gaming industry. Second is around user-generated content. And the way we kind of view that is that's a lot of different things, right? It's people building in games like Roblox and Minecraft, but it's also esports and influencers and brands and musicians and everybody getting involved. And we now think there's about 100 million stakeholders that are creating content in some form in these game economies. So what we started to do at Mythical was really, we've been thinking about kind of these concepts since 2018. We started in 2018, thinking about things like digital ownership, right? How do we basically convert from being a form of entertainment into digital assets? Well, if you have the ability to sell, what's that relationship with the secondary markets? And then what are new game models that ultimately come out of this? And obviously, we've come up as an industry the term Web 3. And Web 3 is definitely emerging to solve some of this. So we've already seen a lot of great uses for ownership in games. This stuff is working quite well. These are probably the 4 biggest ones we've seen so far. So one, branded collabs have done incredibly well as kind of NFTs or digital assets in gaming. We've done things with Burberry. We've done things with Deadmau5, groups like that. And what's really fascinating about that is most of the time these brands understand their brand better than we might as a game developers. And so a great example is Burberry came in and they had a new fashion line and they wanted to launch a new digital character along with that fashion line. So that digital character became one of the spokespersons for their brand. And they wanted to do these ideas. Again, this is digital only in a game. So it's a little bit different than like an NFT PFP collection. But they wanted to do 750 of them and sell them for $300. And we said, hey, in a traditional video game, that's kind of crazy for a digital only item. And we were wrong. So we took their advice. They priced it out themselves, and it sold out in about 22 seconds. So it's been really, really exciting to watch this because now there's basically this new kind of business development layer starting with these brands to be able to experience in these games. Limited time, this is something we've seen, obviously, in traditional gaming as well. There's a reason that people still sell free Fortnite accounts on eBay. It's usually to get a digital skin that's might have been available 2 or 3 years ago. So we're seeing a lot of this. We kind of view it in terms of quantity-based or time-based. This is working incredibly well. Earned items that are completely free in the game. It was kind of, I was there, I was part of that battle pass, I was part of that season, and I was able to get these items. People find value in that. Maybe I missed it, maybe I was not playing the game at the time, or I joined the community 2 years later. There's true value that's coming out of that, and players are having an opportunity to kind of monetize against that. And then promotional. We've seen this as a great way to kind of onboard people. We've done big promotions with Twitch. We've done deals with Amazon Prime Gaming. These have really, really worked well. So we've started thinking about marketplaces, and what does that mean? There's a lot of, obviously, NFT marketplaces out there. But one thing I think we have to remind ourselves is that gamers are not crypto traders, right? They're not financial traders. They're consumers. They think in terms of liquidity. So I think we have to basically keep a focus, and this is what our focus has been, and I think others are doing as well, to start thinking about how do we treat them as consumers. They think in terms of liquidity. Hey, I have 5 race cars. I have 5 NFL players. How do I sell those for $100, right? And not necessarily thinking as much about floor prices and bids and asks and all that. So we're also basically, there's an opportunity to kind of optimize for game developers. And that's a really interesting kind of optimization challenge to solve. And that's going to be a key to kind of bringing these marketplaces into the mainstream. So I just updated the data here, and I think this is really interesting. So obviously, we're a new member of the Polkadot ecosystem. We're very excited about that. So we're in process right now. We're moving from an EVM chain into a Polkadot-backed substrate chain. But these are actually the current data right now. And I think one thing that's really interesting is that gaming is probably the fastest use of digital assets on any blockchain at this point. So if you look at the left, this is the kind of total sales. The last piece is last month in May. So Ethereum's still kind of holding the lead at 500 million a month, roughly, 450 to 500 million. The second one is Solana, and Mythical actually took number 3 spot. So we're actually the third biggest chain in the world last month in terms of total sales of digital items, a little bit, nearly $40-something million last month. But what is really fascinating is at the right side. So what we're seeing there is number of transactions. So what's interesting is you see a lot of volatility, right? Groups like these PFP projects and all that, they have a lot of volatility. We're in the blue, though, so we're just kind of consistently growing. And I think you're going to see that more and more when you start hitting traditional gaming. It's a very predictable and kind of strong growing path. It's not as volatile as the others. But the really interesting thing is last month, I think Ethereum did about 900,000 transactions on-chain for NFT sales. We ended up doing about 2.2 million. So we beat Ethereum by about 2.5 times last month. That's all coming to Polkadot. So we're very excited about that, bringing that over to the community very soon here. So we're getting there. We're getting there. So like I said, we think this is going to continue to grow. We have a couple games. I'll show you where we're thinking, and then kind of get into what we see comes next. So I want to start off with one other piece of data that I thought was really fascinating. When we first kind of launched our first game, Blanco's Block Party, which is these little vinyl toys, basically we held some people back, which I know is not super Web3 to do, but we wanted to see what's the effect, right? What happens when you have the ability to sell, then when you don't? And we measured a lot of that. And we saw some really, really fascinating data. And we've used this data a lot, honestly, to get deals with Apple and Google, where we've been talking with Xbox and PlayStation. And this data is really helping us kind of move the industry forward. So a couple things we see. One is that for every, say, $1 sold in the primary stores in Xbox or Epic or Apple or Google, we're seeing about $4 traded between players. So about 4x in spend. Now I know we take a little bit higher percentage because we're more traditional games than like a traditional NFT market. But we take about 15% transaction fee that is split back with the creator, is split back with the game developer. But that's about a 60% lift in net revenue. That's very, very, very important for game development, right? A lot of times the success or failure in a video game can be 2 or 3%. So the fact that we're starting to see 50+% increase in revenue from secondary fees is a very, very interesting piece, and it's waking up a lot of the industry right now. But we also saw that players spent about 33% more time in the game. They were 33% more engaged when they had the ability to sell than when they didn't. And that's been really, really interesting to tap into as well. Overall, we see about 3x the spend. So a player that has the ability to sell spends about 3 times as much money, including twice as many in the actual original store, the original purchase that are mints as well. And about 12% of the overall spend will go directly back in the economy almost immediately. So if you start putting these numbers against something like a Fortnite, right? Fortnite did about we'll just round it to $5 billion last year. So they would see roughly about $20 billion, if they follow the same trends, which I think they probably would. They see about $20 billion of trade volume, of which if they took that would almost be $3 billion of additional revenue for that game. And then not only that, out of that 20 billion, probably another 3 billion would go right back into the game. So they would over double their revenue if they started thinking about models like this. And we actually had an opportunity to speak with Tim Sweeney and show him this data, and it's definitely starting to light up a lot of interest in the space. So we're starting to see that this is starting to kind of hypercharge sales rather than cannibalize sales, which is really important for game studios to understand. So why haven't we taken over the world yet with game studios, right? Well, last year there were only really 3 games in 2022 that hit over 1 million players. And while a lot of people were all kind of high-fiving, hey, we hit 1 million players, it's pretty small. My last game, Call of Duty, we do about 50 million paid players a year. And on top of that, the mobile game does about 500 million players on mobile. So 1 million players, it's a good start, but we're not quite there yet. But it was pretty significant. We had 3 games last year. We were one of the 3 that hit over 1 million players. Sandbox and Axie were kind of the other 2. We also had, we were very lucky to have the first game on a major platform. So last year, we were the first game on Epic. I think we were the only game on Epic Game Store last year. I'm hearing now there's 30 games coming out on Epic this year that have a Web3 economy. So we're starting to see that trend really hit, and this is starting to get more mainstream already. This year, though, we think there's going to be 3 to 4 games that will hit 10 million players. This is a huge order of magnitude for the industry. We're going to see most studios start watching this as we hit these numbers. We actually think we have 2 of those 3 potentially. We know Come to Us is probably going to be another one with Summoner's War Chronicles out of Korea. So why are we now kind of getting there? Well, one, we're going gamer first, right? These are real games, real gameplay. Bigger games also take time. So I'll show you a quick preview of some of these games and what these look like, but they're real, true games that are built with these economies behind the scenes. There's also not a lot of industry jargon. One thing you'll see in NFL is that we don't use the words NFT or Web3 or crypto. We talk about things like own your team, own your rivals, right? We use language like that that really speaks to consumers. And right now, we're very proud of this game. This first game's out. Let me go into that real quick. So NFL Rivals came out about 6 weeks ago into the off-season, we call it, season 0. And we've been kind of testing it out in early access. And we actually, we told the team it was going to be a marathon more than a sprint, but we kind of came out sprinting. So we've hit over 1 million players. I think we're actually sitting about 1.1 million players in the game after 6 weeks. We ended up hitting the top of the charts. We had the #1 sports game, #1 action game ahead of Roblox last month, over 1 million players. But my favorite stats are the bottom two. One, we're sitting on nearly 2 hours of game time or play time per player per day. That is incredible, right? We're very, very happy with that stat. People are really playing this game. And not only that, it's very highly rated. So we're actually sitting, I think we're actually up to about 25,000 reviews now. On Apple, we're sitting at 4.8 stars, which puts us right up there with Madden, puts us right up there with FIFA, with the Web3 economy, right? We're getting no complaints around this, right? We've kind of subtly brought this into this world. So we're starting to see some really great things. Google's sitting there at 4.4, which is, again, very, very similar. Google people have a tendency to complain more, apparently. But it's the same for Madden, same for everybody else. So we're sitting really, really strong here. So I thought I'd show real quick, just a quick trailer of what this looks like.
Listen up, champ. You think you love football? Scientists say you're on your phone 14 hours a day, but one thing you're not doing on it? Scoring, pulse-pounding, high-flying, game-winning touchdowns. This is NFL Rivals, a heart-racing rush of head-to-head, grab-and-go, gridiron grudge matches. Collect your favorite players, set a lineup that coaches would drool over, then punch it down the field for the TD. Boom! This isn't any given Sunday fun day. This is an on-the-go, bump and run up the score on your best frenemy on any day that ends in Y. See? I told you. This is different. Woo! You thought we were done? Oh, please. Climb the leaderboards with weekly events, reap glorious rewards in global tournaments. But more importantly, get petty and settle some scores. Own your team. Own your plays. Own your rivals. Play for keeps.
So that's NFL Rivals. Very, very proud. Pretty good looking NFTs behind the scenes there we like. I was going to show one more quick preview. This is another game that's in soft launch right now. So this is another example, I think, where we think the industry is going. So Nitro Nation is an existing game by a company called CM Games. That game had, I think it was 85 million installs in this game, #3 racing title on all of mobile. So we partnered with them about 2 years ago to basically bring out a sequel called World Tour. I thought I'd give a quick preview of what's happening. This game is in soft launch already in the Philippines. I think it's opening in Mexico. It'll be worldwide next month. So I'll show you one quick preview. Again, pretty good looking NFTs. Oh, maybe. Pretty sexy looking Polkadot NFTs coming. So we're very happy with what's coming with this game next year. So we actually think this game will probably do about 25 million players in the first year, partly based off we have an existing user base already built in the game that'll naturally come to the new game. So these are the types of things that we're already getting to as an industry, and we're really excited by that. And we're starting to see new experiences that come out of this. This is one that's being discussed. This is an illustrative example right now. But here's kind of real-world examples that we get really pumped about. One, you take a group like FaZe Clan. So FaZe Clan is a big esports group in the United States. They have about 100 million followers. they have an official car license called with Porsche. So Porsche happens to be in discussions with Mythical for Nitro Nation. So on top of that, they have 4 pro streamers that they love playing racing games. And then they have this kind of very sexy-looking variant of a Porsche here that they put out as the FaZe Clan Porsche. So here's the concepts that we can start thinking about that you can really only do in Web3 in these mainstream games. So we take the Porsche, we say, hey, we're going to do a limited run. In the game, we have an interesting feature called Racing for Keeps. And Racing for Keeps, assuming we can get through all the legal signing off on it. The idea there is basically I can take my car, I can lock it in a smart contract against somebody else. In this mobile game, I can play real time against somebody else. Winner takes them both, right? It's the ultimate grief. You know, it's not going to be the only way to play, but it's a very high stakes way to play. It's the best thing you could probably do to grief somebody is to beat them, steal their car, and sell it on the market, right? So what we could do here is we could actually you sell a limited run of 10,000 NFTs. Let's just throw out a number. If you get one of these FaZe Clan cars, you now get to enter an esports tournament in the game. Meanwhile, we give each of these 4 streamers their own one-of-a-kind variant. They have a one-of-a-kind that's dedicated to them. If you place in the top 10 of the esports tournament, I get to challenge one of the pro streamers. If I beat them, I steal their one-of-a-kind car. So why is that really, really awesome, right? Well, to us, it's really cool because Porsche loves it. They're getting an audience with Gen Z. FaZe Clan loves it because they're getting a cut of primary and secondary sales. The players love it because it's a brand new fan engagement model. These guys have millions of followers, right? The ultimate win would be I get to play them, and if I beat them, I steal their one-of-a-kind item. So it's a new way to engage with these audiences. And the streamers love it because they get a ton of content that they can stream on Twitch and YouTube and things like that. So these are examples of where we think this is going with new digital experiences that pretty much have to have Web3 to pull them off. So we're super pumped on where this is kind of going. So that's kind of where we're at. You know, that's where things are at. And what I want to show you is kind of where we think this goes next, right? And this ties into this concept of metaverse. So we've been focused for the last 5 years, really, on building out these last pieces. We have games coming out. We're starting to hit #1 games now, which is exciting. We're starting to see tens of millions of players, we think, this year. So what comes next? So for us, we think it's 2 main things. One is streaming, and another one is the topic no one can seem to avoid these days, which is AI. And I'll talk about kind of where that's at in gaming. So first on streaming, we always hear about the metaverse, right? Metaverse. It's not going to be driven by Roblox and Minecraft, right? Or I'm sorry, Fortnite. We've talked to these teams. We talked about David and Tim. They're very concerned about they want to protect their walled gardens, right? They have no real interest in opening this up, right? And it makes sense. They're sitting on multi-billion-dollar industries. But what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of other groups. And this is one piece I'll talk about at the end. We started a foundation called Mythos, and we'd love for so many developers to start joining us. But in that group right now, we actually have 22 other companies that have already joined Mythos. So we have groups like Animoca. We have groups like Sega and Krafton that makes PUBG, Netmarble, Ubisoft, Bandai. We have a lot of groups in Japan that have already joined. We have a lot of groups in Korea. We have really, really strong Web 2 support already. This is where this innovation is going to come from. These groups are all looking now of how do we come together. There's even a DAO that these companies are now understanding what a DAO is and how to participate. We can start working together to build this tech and do it in an open fashion. So the other misnomer I really always hate to hear about metaverse, it's not just VR. You know, I think the metaverse is a 3D internet, right? It can end up being a full 3D internet that replaces, frankly, what we have now. So to build a 3D internet, we have to scale it like a 2D internet, right? So one of the secrets of why the internet works so well is it was open, right? As a consumer, could go to Amazon.com, which is on AWS. It's on, I think they're written in C++, and it's on Amazon payment rails. And in a split second, I can go to Microsoft.com, and now I'm on .NET, on Azure, on Microsoft payments, right? It's super, super basic for consumers to move between experiences. To do that with 3D, we have to be able to build that type of tech. So obviously, everybody goes to cloud gaming. So cloud gaming has been kind of a very interesting experiment, let's say. It actually works pretty well. We saw things like Stadia, Microsoft xCloud, NVIDIA's doing a lot of stuff around this. So why are these not taking off? Why are all games not streamed? Well, it's really damn expensive is why. So to do these cloud gaming experiences, you have to have a dedicated GPU for every single player. So every game has a dedicated GPU in the cloud to render that and output the game. Well, there's some other few techs out there right now, crypto mining, generative AI, ChatGTP, all these types of models now that are eating these GPUs up. And the average cost right now is about $2 an hour. So if you took this to Fortnite, when they launched the Travis Scott concert, they had 12.3 million concurrent players on just the first viewing alone. That cost them a whopping $25 million an hour to run this on cloud streaming. It's just not feasible. So we found a company a couple years ago called Polystream, and Polystream was kind of the original, kind of the OG of streaming. They built the OnLive system about a decade ago. And they came up with a different tech. So instead of using cloud GPUs, they basically take the draw call information. I won't get too technical here, but they take the draw call information out of the game engines. They run it through machine learning. They compress that data, and then they fire that to the local machine, your local PC, Mac, or mobile, and they inject the data directly into the graphics card. So they use the local graphics card to do this. It works. It's very cool to see. So we actually acquired the company. They hit a financial wall. We bought the company outright, so we now own this tech. So in the last year, we've done two things with this tech, which is really interesting. One is we've been testing it against our first game called Blankos Block Party. Now, that's a Unity-based game, about 8 gigabytes to download. So if you wanted to get in that game, you're downloading 8 gigabytes. You're waiting for that to go. And we wanted to see how efficient could we make that. Well, we've been able to drop that install from 8 gigabytes down to 5 megabytes. And you only have to install it one time. So once you have that installed, you can install it in literally less than 10 seconds. You can be in that game, full high-definition game, full 60 frames a second. And the most amazing part is we've now got that running to where this game takes less bandwidth than Netflix. So if you can stream Netflix movie, you can stream the game. So this has been a huge, huge endeavor for us. We got it down to about 3 or 4 megabits a second. So now we kind of got this working, and our cost structure is literally 4%. So I think we can do this for, right now it's probably about 20 cents per hour, so it's about a 90% discount to cloud streaming. But we think we can get this to possibly even down into the penny range. So it's starting to work. We can start doing some cool stuff with this. So the next piece is we wanted to challenge the team and say, hey, build us something you couldn't do without it, right? So again, everybody talks about metaverse. We're like, well, let's show our version of what we think metaverse could look like. So we built a demo called Portals, and we've actually never showed this demo publicly before, but I thought I'd share it today. So what this is going to show you is you're going to see our game, you're going to see our Blankos game in Unity, and inside that game there's going to be a portal that opens, and it's a different game on a different game engine. And watch how seamless it is to move between these. So yeah. So I have my desktop, 5 megabyte loader, about 3 seconds, and I'm in the game, fully in the game. So now I'm streaming the game from a cold start, nothing installed on the machine. I can see and stream the entire Blankos game. So as I go into the game, 5 definition, 1080p, running through this about 3 or 4 megabits a second. So as I'm running through this junction here, we added a little demo into this called Portals. So again, this is a Unity game, about 8 gigabytes to download. When I turn around, you're going to see a portal appear, and inside that, you're going to see an Unreal 4 game running live inside of Unity. But not only that, I can walk through that portal, and I'm instantly in the other game and controlling that game. So I literally walk from one game to another game, from a different one game engine to another game engine completely seamlessly. So now I'm in Unreal 4. I'm running around. We even kind of play around with interoperability. You'll see the Billy Bones jacket. I'm now in Unreal 4. I see a Unity game running. It's a Lego-style game running in the background here. I can walk up to this portal. You can see it running. I'm going to run through that portal, and I'm in a third game. Nothing installed in this machine. So I've literally moved from company to company without ever installing anything on my local machine. So we think this is really, really cool, right? So why is this pretty interesting? Well, I think you start connecting companies together. Also, I think Web3 becomes really, really critical because that becomes your identity. That becomes your wallet. That becomes your assets transfer as you move between these worlds. So we have some of the base tech already to start building these next experiences. We have 3 or 4 companies now that we're working with to get some of this stuff live. So we're really, really pumped on where that goes. So the last couple questions I get a lot is interoperability. When are we going to do interoperability? Well, to be super honest, we can already do a little of that, right? I mean, blockchain tech already allows us to do interoperability. Like, we could take a helmet from NFL, and we can grant that same helmet in a very interesting style, right? In a very friendly style to Blankos. I don't think you'll ever be able to take that exact asset and bring it from game to game. If you ever talk to a creative director or an art director of a game, they'll never let you do that. It has to be in their style, in their universe style. But we can actually kind of build that, right? That already exists. But the problem we have is when you have 70,000 of these helmets that we've built, that's a problem, right? You have to get 70 or 80,000 of these helmets built for every game experience. So we have a production issue, right? We could do this. We actually went out and got some quotes of how to do this, of how do we basically move assets. I want to go from one game to another game. I think the assets here was about, I think our cheapest quote was $400,000 to bring it to Blankos. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that right now. So that kind of leads us to AI. And I think AI is going to be a massive, massive disruption in gaming, but it's also going to really fulfill this promise of interoperability, right? Allowing some of these things to happen, allowing these concepts we talk about in metaverse to become a reality. But it's not quite there yet, right? So we've made tremendous progress as an industry on stable diffusion, on large language models, but we haven't quite nailed it for 3D yet. So there's a lot of progress happening at a very rapid rate, but there's groups, there's some really innovative stuff. OpenAI has a product called Point E, to where they're starting to do what they call cloud points. They basically take a 2D image and they create cloud points, and then they have a second AI that runs and converts the cloud points into meshes. It's all right, it's getting there. You know, I wouldn't put those in a game quite yet. Google actually has the two in the middle, to where you can actually, I thought we had them animated here at some point. There we go. So you can actually see, they took a 2D image. They actually are able to train this now without having a 3D reference model, which is actually really, really cool. So they're making great progress as well with what they call Dream Fusion. There's other third-party companies like Sortium and groups like that are starting to build really, really cool tooling around this, but we're still not quite there. I do think we'll be able to get to the point we can start doing 3D object synthesis within a year and a half, but we still have other challenges as well. So we have things like rigging and animation and skeletal structures. All that stuff is very difficult to do still. So again, there's just a lot of different facets to really get this to happen. And then on top of that, like this is one of my favorite images, once you have an object, just because you have an object of a glass, is it reflecting the glass the way, or reflecting the light through that glass the way you want in a particular world, right? Because every world can do a little bit different pieces here. So we definitely have some work left to do, but we are making good progress. So for us, what we consider kind of metaverse or Web 3D, which is what we're kind of nicknaming it internally, is we really think it's all of these things coming together. And the great thing is the first three here, we already are a pretty good spot as an industry, right? Digital identity, we're making tons of progress there. Ownership and secondary markets, new game commerce, that's all happening. And we're kind of on the scale path at that point. The next two, I think we have tech now to kind of make these happen. We're now kind of in the process of operationalizing these. So things like new digital experiences, instant connected worlds, it's happening too, right? We're in a pretty good spot there. Things like interoperability and that 3D object synthesis, we're still figuring it out, right, as an industry. So we have a little bit of work left to do. And then I think we have to figure out how to do this completely and fully decentralized. I think that's very, very key if we want to kind of take this forward as an industry. But we definitely are closer than we think, which is really, really exciting to see. So the last slide I really had was, we're very excited to join the Polkadot ecosystem. Thank you for bringing us in here. We'd love to I want to again, talk about Mythos for just 1 second. We have this Mythos Foundation. We have quite a few partners involved. And really the thesis behind that is we really want to have a DAO. We want to bring all this together. We have a lot of amazing Web 2 companies that have already joined. Some of them are joining to learn. Some of them are joining to build already. Some of them are joining, they're already building with us. But we really want to basically have kind of a full DAO that's running behind this. And we want to start now and really bringing in developers as well. So we want to connect the Web 2 with Web 3. There is a token out there, so we are doing things like, we have an MIP process. It's open. We just kind of launched it recently. We had our first community MIP proposal that passed, and it's going to a vote now, or passed the submission. It's now going to a vote. But we're open to having more token grants, right? The token's trading out there. It's actually, there's real value on that now, and we want to start bringing a lot of developers into this community. So if you want to follow more information, obviously Mythos, you can go to the website or Twitter. Feel free to reach out to them, reach out to Mythical, reach out to me. But we'd love to have you join, love to learn more. And that's my presentation. So thank you so much for having me.